The presidential election is held every 4 years in the United States and unfortunately seems to bring out the worst in people. Division has run rampant since the beginning of time. However, there's more focus on whether you reside in a red or blue state and which candidate you're voting for rather than truly upholding the standards of God. Many feel that a single person can turn the tide and create a miracle, but sadly, it becomes more of the same and things go back to where they've always been. So in this video, we'll discuss who your hope and faith should reside in and why it's unwise to put 100% trust in a fallen and sinful person such as the president. Let's be clear on this. There's nothing wrong with voting. I'm not saying that you should not vote. As a democracy in the United States, we have all been blessed with the ability to decide on who we prefer to be in the Oval Office. So I don't want you to think that I'm an anti-voter or I do not believe in the right to vote. But you should never treat politicians as saviors or idols. That goes completely against the Word of God. Unfortunately, many people put nationalism above theology and treat their person as a saint. When this occurs, people begin to act uncivilized and take matters into their own hands. We saw this anarchy play out during the Trump-Biden elections on January 6th. The Capitol insurgents was a devastating day for this country, and I pray that it never happens again. I'll save that video for another time. The Word of God does tell us to submit to authorities, but it doesn't tell us to put those rulers above God. The point is clear. As long as we can do without denying Christ or compromising our faith, we must always strive to cooperate with the ruling powers. That doesn't necessarily mean that we will endorse all of their policies or approve of every specific action they take. This is especially true in a democratic society, where it is the duty of responsible citizens to examine public servants with a discerning and critical eye. Nevertheless, Christians are responsible to uphold biblical righteousness in a hostile culture while also expressing respect for his leadership. On the topic of trusting others, King David said, "It is better to take refuge in the Lord than trust in man." David spoke from experience, having been betrayed many times by those close to him. Instead of becoming bitter or regarding all people as inherently untrustworthy and not worth his time, he learned and taught a simple truth. Sinful people will fail us, but we can always trust in God. David's son, King Solomon, learned that lesson well and added to it, saying that it's better to trust God than to trust our own minds. Proverbs 3:5-6. We must continue to do our part as Christians and followers of Christ. Just because your candidate ends up winning the presidential election doesn't give you the right to stop living out God's words and putting all trust and faith in man. And if your candidate doesn't get voted in, you must always continue dying to yourself on a daily basis as best as possible. It's human nature to have an inner conflict and turmoil when deciding on who to vote for. But you must all know that any candidate, no matter who wins the presidential election, they're fallen and they're sinful human beings. As Christians, we want to ensure that the policies of the candidate that we're voting for is as close to the principles in the Bible as possible. But it can become a problem when fighting and bickering starts to occur. I've even heard of marriage couples not seeing eye to eye on certain policies and procedures by elected officials. When this occurs, it's best to communicate with each other in a loving and mature way. Political debates can get a bit heated, especially if the two people involved are on the opposite ends of the spectrum. It is essential to exude the love of Christ in these moments when you can't seem to find a viable solution to whatever the argument may be. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Do you find yourself becoming more anxious as the time approaches for the presidential election or when debating someone with different views? If so, my encouragement to you is to know that no matter the outcome, God will forever reign on the throne and no candidate is perfect. Thank you for your support and always strive to remain set apart. God bless.